Palm Sunday, Passion Sunday, a celebration or a funeral procession. It may be both, now on the Accessible Faith Project. Hi there, I'm John, and welcome to the Accessible Faith Project. If you're new here and looking for insights into the Bible, faith, and history in ways that engage your brain, then please hit subscribe and that little bell icon so you receive a notification every time I upload a new video. As we continue social distancing, I've been using the Accessible Faith Project to provide worship and devotional resources in addition to my educational videos. This is a sermon for Palm or Passion Sunday, but as with all of my offerings, I try to hope to set it into a context and a situation that can help us in ours. One of the well-meaning but hurtful phrases shared with my wife and I after our younger daughter Heather died was, "Everything happens for a reason." I hate that phrase. I hate it with every fiber of my being. I hate it because when people say it, while they mean well, it implies that they know the reason for something occurring and I didn't, or that there must be some explanation for why our 2-day-old newborn had died. Hearing this phrase came across as judgmental and downplaying our pain and our loss. It tried to put our daughter's death into a neat, tidy little container so that it could be explained away and in doing so make everything okay. I'll share a secret with you as a bereaved parent. It can't. It doesn't. It is not okay, and it never will be. So when my wife heard the title of a new book by Kate Bowler, an assistant professor at Duke Divinity School, she was drawn to checking it out. The title is called Everything Happens for a Reason and Other Lies I've Loved. Her book is essentially a memoir written out of her experience of being diagnosed with stage 4 colon cancer at the age of 35 and being told, as Sarah and I were, that everything happens for a reason. Her book wrestles to come to the place where she names that, in fact, no, things can and do just happen. It's a powerful and incredible little book. I can highly recommend it. And if you're into podcasts, she has a podcast as well where she interviews various people. One of the things that we found particularly poignant was her words about this day, about Palm Sunday and the story from Mark's Gospel. Kate writes, "I know where Palm Sunday falls in the story of our God. Jesus is on a donkey, trudging into Jerusalem, people waving their arms in the air, tattered coats thrown down before the one who marches toward his death. It is a celebration. It is a funeral procession. Holding Zach, my son, in my arms 15 days from my next CAT scan, I wish I knew the difference," as she wrote. This paragraph caught our attention because Palm Sunday is indeed a celebration. There's a sense of excitement in the air. People lay down their coats and their cloaks down on the ground to make a path. There is a waving of branches, much like we would wave team pennants to mark a sports win. People are happy and singing and having a good time. They are cheering and rejoicing at the coming of Jesus, who they believe is the promised one of God, the Messiah, the one that they hope will overturn the Roman occupation. There's a sense of hope and optimism together with festivity. And yet, there's a lot more going on here than simply a celebration. Artist and theologian Jan Richardson writes this observation: "After sending for the colt, after the procession, after the palms, after the cloak-strewn road, after the hosannas, after blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord, after all this, Mark, alone of all the Gospels, tells us that Jesus goes into the temple and looks around at everything. He doesn't teach, he doesn't preach, he doesn't heal, he does not confront or challenge, he does not even speak, and neither does he cross the path of anyone who requires his attention. Mark conveys the impression that here, in this sacred space that lies at the heart of his people, Jesus is quite alone. and it is nighttime. And all Jesus does is simply look around. And what is it that he sees in the temple by night? I think Jesus saw and experienced two things in that time of silence in the temple after the celebratory period was over. First, I believe he saw his own story and his connection with the temple. I can imagine that he perhaps saw his parents, Mary and Joseph, coming out of the shadows carrying their infant son. Perhaps he sees Simeon gathering his young self into his arms, singing about salvation and light for revelation, joined by the old prophet Anna, who raises her voice in praise. Perhaps Jesus sees again the 12-year-old who conversed with the temple teachers and the tempter who tried to lure him to fling himself from the pinnacle of this place. Perhaps a woman, once trapped and terrified, stands before him again, this time with the light of forgiveness and healing shining through her eyes. Beyond his own story, the temple held many other memories for Jesus. People he had healed, folks he had talked to. It flows to the second thing that I believe Jesus saw and experienced in the temple. In that silence after the Palm Parade, the knowledge of why he had come. A reminder of the ministry of love to which he was called and the God who sent him. And that for him, the Palm Procession was in fact for his own funeral. We don't tend to think of funeral processions as joyful events, usually because they're not. If we have experienced one, most of us would likely describe it as a quiet, solemn, dignified affair designed to pay tribute to someone we have loved. And yet for Jesus, I believe that Kate Bowler is onto something when she describes Palm Sunday as a funeral procession. Jesus knows what the disciples and his followers do not. As they enter Jerusalem, that this is the last week of his life, that he is entering Jerusalem to go head to head against the authorities, and that will cost him his life. Jesus rides a donkey rather than a horse, as military leaders might do, and by doing this, Jesus teaches us again about humility, love, and the true meaning of the Messiah. He is the one who prepares the world for the peace-filled reign of God with an attitude of humility, and he will die a cruel death on a cross that will usher that reign in. Palm Sunday calls us to follow Jesus, maybe even to his death. May it be so. Amen.